Week 2, Tuesday, from the far country. This is Luke 15, 11 to 15 and 17 to 19. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son travelled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. One of the citizens of that country sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.'" This story is commonly called the parable of the prodigal son. Curious that there are 2 sons. Why is it named after only one, and why that one in particular? There were 2 groups in the audience. All the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." That's in verses 1 and 2. So it begins abruptly with background. The younger son goes to his father and demands his share of the family inheritance. How the father replies, we are not said. He just accedes, giving both sons their share. No one in the audience would have needed telling that, in the society of the day, this behaviour was the gravest possible insult, public insult, to the father. Whatever the message of the story is, surely it is obvious where the finger of judgment will point in the end. Prodigal means profligate, excessively wasteful, squandering. It sums up the son's life in the far country very accurately. He ends up bankrupt and friendless. His inner crisis is mirrored by the outer crisis. In the far country of his impulsive choices, everything has run out. There was famine in the land, and he, a Jew, is now a swineherd, working for Gentiles. There was no greater shame. Hebrew storytelling puts its main point in the middle, not the end. And here it is. He came to himself. Verse 17. This is such a revealing phrase. We speak of coming to our senses, which catches the same sense of a shock of recognition. Imagine enjoying a dream of wildly exciting, uninhibited adventure, where, as in all dreams, no rules constrain our freedom in any way. Then we awake to discover it was real all along. We really were behaving like that. All around us, our world lies trashed and ruined. The only life that is ours to live. The far country is not just a physical place for the son. It's in a very significant way, he has been in exile from his own self. He now sees where his behaviour and choices have led him. He knows he has blown everything. His only option is to return home and cast himself on his father's mercy. Perhaps he will be taken on as a slave, somewhere out of sight, where he will at least have food, but cause no further harm. A public figure, notorious for repeated financial problems, is aptly described as driving through life with no rear-view mirror. The way we live has consequences, and they will catch us up. Someone else describes Western culture as life on the compass of our excitement, restlessly pursuing every quiver of the needle, driven by our appetites. The deep economic crisis of recent years was wholly predictable in an economic system driven by unsustainable assumptions of endless growth. But has anything changed? Consumer debt has tripled in the last 20 years. Meanwhile, my bank presently offers me higher interest rates for my current account than for my savings account, on the condition that I spend. It is a wasteful dream in every way. Recent surveys in the UK reveal a society that is throwing away £10 billion worth of edible food every year. We are prodigal, but not yet at the point, through despair or wisdom, of coming to ourselves. A feature of people struggling with compulsive and addictive behaviour is that they cannot be helped until they hit rock bottom. You have to be desperate enough. There may be something to envy in this young man's moment of truthful awakening. And, for one half of Jesus' audience, this story is laying bare their deepest need. We'll talk about the elder son tomorrow. Let's pray. Lord, whatever journey I am on, bring me to myself.